Welcome to the OKD Working Group meeting for May 9th of the year 2023. And we've got the agenda in the chat, and take about 30 seconds to take a look. Let me know if there's anything else that we need to add, change, modify, move around. All right, are we good to go? Okay, let's start out with OKD release and CI/CD updates with Christian. Welcome back, Christian.
Hey, everybody. So we have new OKD on SCOS releases, and yeah, quite a swath of them, actually. We've been doing, the team that Shireen is in has been doing an excellent job in doing sprintly releases now. So with OKD on SCOS, we can expect sprintly, which is 3 weekly releases now for both our stable stream, which is 4.12, and also the next stream, which is currently 4.13. And once 4.13 goes GA, the stable stream will also go to 4.13, and our next stream will likely then pivot to 4.14. Yeah, I don't think we have had another OKD on FCOS release since the last working group meeting, so I can't comment on that. Yeah, that's it for me.
All right. Does anyone else want to chip in any other thoughts on that? No. Okay. Moving on now to FCOS updates. Timothy can't be here, so we don't really have any updates for that. So let's move along. Well, overall SCOS updates. Anything else that we should know just in general?
And I don't want to kind of spoil what Timothy will tell us next meeting, but I met with Timothy here in Hamburg last week. He's on holidays, and so there are some exciting plans in CoreOS land that we will also, I think, try to use, or at least to experiment with in OKD, which is they are going to essentially split the base OS, and that is less FCOS and more RCOS and also SCOS. They're going to split that into a core that essentially doesn't carry any of the Kubernetes and OpenShift or OKD dependencies, and then layer on top the things like the kubelet, cryo, and those things that are essentially bound to a specific Kubernetes version. And with that, and those different the builds for the different Kubernetes versions can then share a common core compose, a core image, and that split, I think, is very useful also for us, because we'll then be able to consume the core image not just in OKD, but also in essentially other use cases, and things like IoT comes to mind, and certainly other as well. So we want to do that in SCOS in order to also have clear ownership of the base, which will be well, it'll still be us in the working group and the OKD streams team, but we want to make that an official CentOS artifact, this core CentOS stream, CoreOS. And then we, as the OKD working group, can essentially layer the OpenShift clients RPM, the OpenShift Hypercube RPM, and cryo on top, and test that together for each version of Kubernetes, and still deliver all the different streams and to different versions. And I think having that split kind of supported by the team that maintains Fedora CoreOS and also RHEL CoreOS, which is Timothy's team, is going to help us achieve that way more quickly, I think, now that they are essentially doing the same there. So I think that's something to look forward to. There's also new tooling coming in from the CoreOS side. There's Boot C and things they are now experimenting with for image creation, which Boot C can, I think, could in that case replace RPMOS tree eventually. So that is certainly something we will also experiment with, not immediately, but that is kind of on the radar if there's any interest in the community to help with that, or just if you're interested in that, let me know. And then finally, on as a kind of maybe I'm getting ahead here on the agenda, as a quick update on SCOS also. We have now, we are in the process of deploying a cluster to MOC, the Massachusetts Open Cloud. And so our current build system on Operate First is essentially unmaintained now. So it's starting to decay a little bit. We don't have anybody working on the maintenance for that cluster anymore. And now CI is broken, and I don't think anybody's there to fix it. So we are working on setting up a new shop on Massachusetts Open Cloud and having our own cluster there as a build farm, which we will then, one of these, our build farm cluster, we will onboard into CentOS infrastructure as kind of an official build, making it part of the official CentOS infrastructure, and thereby enabling us to do these official artifact builds there. And there is still interest from a few other folks to also have their own clusters. So we'll likely also have a secondary cluster for kind of deploying community projects. That is something the Operate First folks would like, and they are in turn going to help us with administration, or the former Operate First folks, I should say, with administration of these build farms. I think that's a good deal, and it'll also enable our working group members to deploy their own things on a cluster that isn't the production build farm. That's kind of the update for me. Back to you, Jamie.
Excellent. Any questions, comments, feedback on any of that? All right, moving on now to community development updates. Take it away, Brian.
Okay, so we had our meeting last week. There's a link in the PackMD with the planning board. So I say we're now being driven by cards on that board. So we went through all the work in progress. We now have Luigi's detailed single node install. So that's doing it manually using sort of building it up slowly. So that's there now. I need some help to get the assisted installer. Neither the SCOS or the FCOS version works, running exactly the same commands that the Red Hat hosted one does for OCP. So it's either the assisted installer isn't quite compatible with what we're doing with OKD, or we're building the image that are slightly different, but neither cluster works. The SCOS doesn't even get to the rotate, where the FCOS does bring up a cluster, but a lot of the operators are just broken. I've actually documented in the issue. I've posted that into the chat here. So it is issue number 2 on the planning board. It's in progress. There is a must gather log for the FCOS. So please, if anybody has time, ping me on. I'm on Slack, either in the OpenShift users or the Kubernetes users. And I'd like to get that up so we've then got single node install documentation available. I think the other big thing that we discussed was we're going to slightly alter the format of the meeting. So every other meeting is going to be a working group session where we're actually going to tackle one of the issues. So next week, we're going to look at the homepage and try and refactor the homepage. And the week after, we're going to go back to just reviewing all of the items on the planning board. And then the week after, if people can attend, we want to do a kickoff for the operators, the OKD operator catalog. So again, I'm hoping maybe Christy and Luigi, we can get you in on that one, because I think it's important that we do have some of the technical Red Hat folks on that one. So next week is going to be the homepage for okd.io. Week after, we'll do a normal go through the board, and then the week after will be the operators kickoff session. I don't think there's really anything more to say, because I notice you've got the other item as the next item on the agenda that we discussed, the survey for the time change.
Yeah, the only thing that I would add is, so here's a link. I'm putting this in the chat there. That's an issue that I opened that has the 2023 survey. If anyone has any comments or questions that you'd like to see, I updated it a little bit, but if folks have any other questions that they think would be helpful as we put this out, just add a comment in that issue. The gist is to try to do these annually now to sort of help shape the working group and give us a little bit of guidance and whatnot. Yeah, and then that, as speaking of surveys, that leads us to the survey for the time change, possible time change. Well, it turns out we have 17 responses. The majority of the responses are vote to move it back permanently 1 hour. And we did get some suggested feedback, like don't do it on Tuesdays. For the other option, we had just a handful of others. Some were to do it even earlier. One was to keep it at 4 p.m. UTC, which would be an hour earlier, but would change, obviously, for everyone continuously over time. So the majority appears to be having this be, for example, it would be noon Eastern always for me. Christian, does that work for you? We haven't had a chance to talk to Luigi yet, but so it would be an hour earlier, like all the time, basically, than it is currently.
Yeah, for me, that would work.
Okay.
I can't speak for Luigi, but yeah.
Right. And Shireen, that I think we said that works for you as well, right?
Yeah, for me and for
Okay.
Alex, I think it works. Don't know for Luigi, but probably as well, because we are sharing a lot of the meetings these days.
Sure.
Yeah, I think when we had the conversation when Luigi was here, he wanted it to go back. So we're going to follow daylight saving, basically. I know there's going to be a 2-week when we're out of sync, Europe, America, but basically we're going to follow daylight saving. So we're going to go back an hour, which is going to be what, 6 o'clock Europe, 5 o'clock UK, midday, noon Eastern, and then we're going to stay basically at that time. So move with daylight saving.
Jack, does that work for you?
Yeah, that definitely sounds better than the current situation.
Okay. All right. Well, do we want to start next week then? Is that fine to do that next week? All right. So hereby next meeting will be 1 hour earlier, and we'll follow this process of just keeping it at that time and deal with the slight bit of confusion for that brief period between the time changes. But all right, so I'll update the calendars probably tomorrow or later today, and I'll send something out on the working group Google group, email, and I'll also post something in the Slack channel so that it's visible to everybody. All right, is there anything else we need to talk about? We kind of whipped through today's agenda since we're missing a couple of folks. And that might actually end up helping. I know, Timothy's on vacation, but I know other folks haven't been able to attend because of this sort of later hour. So maybe that we'll get more attendance back in the meetings by moving it.
There is two things actually. Brian, since you tried to get the assisted installer working, I think internally we are also looking at that specifically for SCOS, but yeah, maybe we can kind of invite you to our work and just be prepared if you're open to that to get an invite.
Definitely open to that. And I have written step-by-step instructions that work with Podman on that link, but it doesn't produce a working cluster.
Yeah, that's definitely on the roadmap for us. So we're
okay, great. Yeah, that'll be brilliant.
Okay. And then secondly, there is a shift week coming up for us internally in OpenShift engineering, meaning there is 1 week where the engineers, and it's, I think, mid-June, I think it's the week of DevConf, actually. So many of us won't actually be there of this group, at least Shireen, Alex, Vadim as well. We'll all be in Brno. But there is kind of this, we want to drive as many of our internal Red Hat folks to OKD. And there's essentially two onboarding things. There's one of the internal kind of onboarding. I want to really change a part of OpenShift or OKD and want to get a build out of that. How do I do that? And then there is kind of the people just want to try OKD. They just want to install. And instead of kind of providing another guide for that, we essentially, because there's going to be both of those groups, we will have some internal docs for what people can maybe play with, and then for those who just want to install and give it a try, we really want to point them to the working group and also to just okd.io, and yeah, hopefully provide a kind of an install guide for specifically OKD on SCOS. So running up to that, it's in a month. So we'll likely kind of want to add something to the website. So also just a heads up, something yeah, is gonna come for that. And obviously, since it's the onboarding to this group specifically, well, it's installing an OKD on SCOS cluster, but then also how to participate. Yeah, and I haven't checked the okd.io docs, but I'm sure there's some onboarding there, and we'll kind of want to tweak it a little bit to point to SCOS.
So some of that we'll be looking at next week, just in terms of how does the site present itself to a new user, and then what is the flow. But also, I think if we can get, I mean, are you looking at full-blown clusters or single node clusters or a bit of everything?
Really. I mean, those folks will have, the internal Red Hatters for Shift Week will have access to
lots of resources.
Yeah, whatever they want. If they want to put it on AWS, they'll do that. Maybe they have a GCP.
There have been a couple of bugs flying around or discussions flying around about GCP. So that might be one that that's a cloud I don't use, but I think there were some issues around the configuration on GCP. I've seen a few things being raised in the last couple of weeks. So.
Okay. Yeah, and we definitely also want to, and there's going to be interest for SNO and agent-based driven install. So that is something we also want to get working for all of our streams that we have, FCOS as well as SCOS. Yeah, so hopefully we'll kind of get that done before shift week, so we can really have people just trying it all out for us.
Hi, my name is Andrea Fasano. Probably we didn't met before. I work on the agent-based installer. I joined this team because I was interested also and collaborating with Shirin till now. I was interested also in enabling it for deploying OKD. Right now, I think internally, SCOS could be, it's something that seems to be working. And I think maybe the agent-based installer could be interesting given the fact that it's particularly easy to set up and to deploy things. So be happy also to help on that side.
That's awesome. Welcome to the group, Andrea.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think we'll definitely use you and the contact to your team to get this done. And I know that Shireen has already talked to you. So welcome to the working group too. It's good to see you here.
Excellent. Oh, and while we talk about access, or I should access for people to get into the OKD world, I want to highlight that the working group is looking for someone to help with CRC. Folks within Red Hat have been generously sort of providing time to keep things updated so that that can run. But there's a little bit of work that needs to be done on a continuous basis to keep that going. And they're looking for someone in the community to volunteer. We'd like to have someone that isn't affiliated with Red Hat, that's a community volunteer, and use this as a bootstrap project to start having community members actually supporting projects and more directly. So if folks are interested, please feel free to reach out to us. The other thing I wanted to do, go ahead.
Sorry, Jamie, just while you're on there, I think one of the questions was, is that...
And I'm looking into that, right, yeah, for sure.
I mean,
yeah,
is it possible to have some community? Because my thought is what we really need to do is have a pipeline, FCOS and SCOS, so when there's a build, it kicks off a pipeline to build the new CLC artifacts. So that's where we want to get to, but so the new build infrastructure would be useful there as well. Yeah,
for sure. I'd like to just get someone to volunteer to just even manually do it for now, if we can just get some people sort of involved in direct.
Is this currently a straightforward process to build this, or are there still like hacks involved?
No, it's pretty straightforward because they last year, I think it was, they did some work basically to sort of modularize it. So it is a much more straightforward process, but there's still the issue of I think it's updating the certificate in it. And so that's like the one thing that's like a manual task that ideally someone would take over here, is update and this reassemble,
And as an input, what does a CRC build take? Like, is it derived from an OCP or an OKD release in this case?
I'll have to take a look at how they're doing it now. I just know some of the top level details. I haven't delved into
because
maybe that's actually something
we could already put that on operate first even for the time being. If somebody were to create a tecton task that does whatever is needed, we could easily deploy it. So definitely,
very cool.
Definitely something to kind of keep in mind. We can, all of these kind of artifacts that are derived from OpenShift or OKD, we can easily make that because we have access to the to our releases and release controller. So we can I'm not familiar with the CRC build process, so.
Yeah, I have a ticket to explore it more, so that's actually on my agenda for the next week. So the other thing I wanted to highlight is that we do have the in the Matrix channel, Shireen did the awesome work of getting the OKD bot set up. So if anyone watching this video wants to see build results and where they're, the success or failure on these different builds and sort of watch the process, you can go to the OKD channel in our Matrix channel and watch that all unfold there. So the details are on the OKD website and in the meeting notes. All right, anything else? All right, I think we're good. Okay, so not the same bat time next week, an hour earlier, but same bat channel. And thanks so much, folks, for participating. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.